Hi, I'm Zahra. I'm a nutritionist, a beauty therapist, and a wellness coach. Today, I want to talk about consistency and perfection. I want to explore the ideas of perfection and consistency. Now, I notice a lot of the times people get caught up in perfection very easily, especially when they set goals for themselves, which is really great. It's great to have goals. You can also kind of get too caught up in your goals a little bit, in the sense that you don't take into account your own limits and your own level of commitment that you can give to this goal, and thus making that goal unrealistic. Now, that's not necessarily a fault of our own. We need to acknowledge that ambition is really good. It's great to aim for something. But when we make goals and when we try to follow our goals and we try to make it like a very, very structured approach, it can be kind of almost like a cage for yourself. And you convince yourself that you have to be in this cage. And if you get out of this cage, you are going to die or something horrible is going to happen. And so every time that maybe you fall behind a little bit or you don't follow the goal for whatever reason, that means that you're a failure, or it's something to do with your identity. A really deep part of yourself is broken, or you're not good enough, or all these grand conclusions that we sometimes draw just from a very small circumstance or situation or occasion, which could be due to many different things. And there could be many legitimate reasons why you didn't follow through with that goal at that one occasion. Now, consistency is something completely different. When you're consistent, you do have goals still. But what happens is when you sometimes miss and when you sometimes don't show up, you don't make grand conclusions about yourself and your identity. It doesn't automatically mean you're a failure or you're broken or you're going to die or all these existential sort of conclusions that we draw sometimes. Consistency means that if you miss accomplishing a goal, you can try again tomorrow. And consistency means that you can fail many times, but you will continue to come back. That results in a higher self-esteem for yourself, especially because when you miss a day, you're not beating yourself up about it. You're more likely to go just as hard the next day because you realize that you're still committed to that goal. And your focus doesn't wane. Your focus doesn't go from this is the goal to I'm a failure. It goes from this is the goal, I'm going to try again tomorrow. And when we try and not focus on ourselves a lot and not be so self-absorbed, this is another sort of, I think it's a little bit of a radical idea. I think that a lot of times when we miss our goal and we're striving for perfection, it's actually coming from a very egoic, self-centered point of view. Now, hear me out, because it may seem like I'm giving the ego a bad rap, and the ego does get a bad rap a lot of the times. But when you're looking at things from a very self-centered point of view, you don't take into account your environment and all these other circumstances that might have led you to not accomplishing that goal. So the idea is not to see ego as bad and not even set goals for ourselves. That's not the solution. I believe the solution is more to do with being more accepting and forgiving of ourselves when we do miss a goal from time to time, and not take it as a blow to our self-esteem. When we take it as a blow to our self-esteem, we're less likely to accomplish that goal the next day, because the next day you're still feeling like I'm a failure, I'm broken, there's something deeply wrong with me, or whatever else that you've convinced yourself that you are, because of something that happened. Now, this also touches on the idea of shame and guilt. Guilt is when you did something bad, right? And shame is when you are something bad. And a lot of the times when we're striving for perfection and we don't reach that level of perfection that we've envisioned in our head, there's a tendency to feel shame. And shame is a very demotivating force. Shame is not a motivating force. Guilt, on the other hand, can be a momentary feeling that you can allow yourself to feel. But from that, if you don't take action, and if you start ruminating on the guilt and the emotions and all the thoughts that go along with that guilt and that emotion, when you don't take action, it just becomes a loop in your head that you kind of go over and over in circles, and you start to feel guilty about, I did something bad, therefore I need to punish myself, and all these other ways that we tend to deal with these kinds of feelings. Now, to get out of that whole shame and guilt cycle, the best thing to do is to take action. Anytime that you feel like you missed your goal or you missed an opportunity, and maybe the automatic process in your mind wants you to believe something negative about yourself, just take a moment and actually plan your next step and see what action you can take, so that next time you can achieve your dreams and you can achieve your goals, because you are capable. It's taking that negative experience and turning it around into an empowering experience, because sometimes when we miss our goals, it's not because we're bad people or we did bad things. We're not perfect. Maybe we need to reimagine our capabilities and be a bit more realistic about where we are. If you want to get from A to Z and you don't know where A is, and you want to go straight from A to Z, and if you don't get there in the one step and you start to feel bad about yourself or you start to have bad feelings, just take a moment and actually plan and strategize and think about all the steps in between that you can take to get from point A to point Z. It's very important to really connect with point A. If you know that you've tried things in the past and you haven't stuck with it for more than 3 days, acknowledge that. And maybe set your goals realistically. For example, this time I'm going to try and stick it for 4 days instead of 3 days. And incrementally, slowly allow yourself to grow into that version where point Z is for you. I really want to assert the fact that confidence is not a bad thing. Now, there is a difference between arrogance and confidence, but being confident in your abilities is something that gives you a very solid grounding base to kind of shoot off into the life of your dreams. When we don't have that grounding base, when we're feeling like low self-esteem, or we're remembering all our past mistakes, or we're remembering all our failures, that puts your mind in a very demotivating state. Your body doesn't have that call to action. But instead, if you truly acknowledge where you are now, and you want to go towards your dreams and goals, you can allow yourself to take your time to get there. Because at each step, you can allow yourself to acknowledge and celebrate all the achievements that you have made so far. Maybe something that you can do to get that confidence is to, instead of focusing on your failures, remember each time, hey, I followed my goal for 3 different days. And that can be an accomplishment in itself. I think it's important to acknowledge our progress. Now, we can't acknowledge our progress if we don't notice it. And that's where awareness comes in. So at each step, I invite you to be aware of where you are now, so that moving forward, you know where point A is, so that you can go to point Z in a step-by-step process, allowing for all the steps in between. Point B, point C, point D, point E, etc., until you get to point Z. Coming back to the idea of perfection and consistency, I would like to invite you to see consistency and perfection in a different light. Consistency is when you have a goal and maybe you miss 1 day or 2 days, or maybe you take a week off or a month off or a couple of years off, but you still come back. And that consistency, when you still come back, that is a boost to your self-esteem. But when we see things from a lens of perfection, every time we take a day off or a week off or a year off, we can start to beat ourselves up about the fact that, oh, I'm not perfect, I couldn't do this, and I didn't do this, and I wish I could have done that, and there's this whole process of negative thought loops. They're loops because it's a cycle. There is no out of that cycle. You can't get out of that cycle by remaining in it, if that makes sense. You have to completely ditch that idea and go into action mode. Maybe it means for you that you write a list, and in that list you spell it out step by step what you're going to do to achieve that goal. Maybe you just haven't explored completely what it takes for you to achieve that goal. And everyone's journey is different. We can have role models and we can have mentors and we can have people that inspire us. But at the end of the day, our own journey is completely different from everybody else's. We've got to acknowledge that. So when we see our dreams and goals, and when we would like to go towards them and be excited about it, I would like to invite you to approach it from an awareness and from the lens of consistency, because consistency is better than perfection. If you liked this video, please let me know in the comments below, what are some of your goals? What are you trying to achieve right now? And have you found this video helpful? Do you tend to see things from the lens of perfection rather than a consistency? So thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Please share this with your friends and family. And until next time, stay well.